Welcome to the first episode of the Coaches Chat for this offseason. I'm your host, John Sirenitas. I think at this point you're probably sick and tired of looking at me. This is my fourth straight night on X and Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And tonight I have the good fortune to be joined by Nashoba Tech head football coach, Danny Kelly. Coach Kelly, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great. I just wanted to thank you so much. I know we've been trying to connect for a while, so I'm super excited. I listen to you guys every Thursday during the season, so I'm excited to be on the show tonight.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time, my friend. It means a lot to us, and we know coaches are busy year round. So, whenever we can find time to talk ball with the coaches in New England and talk about the programs and the kids, we love doing that. Before we get started here, I do want to remind you that we are brought to you by Complete Quarterback. Visit CompleteQB.com for all kinds of lessons, drills, clinics, camp updates, all of your quarterback needs under one roof. Visit CompleteQB.com today. Again, we are presented to you by Complete Quarterback. Chris Johnson, one of the best quarterback coaches in the country. I've known Chris for a long time. I've worked at camp. I swear by it. A lot of the techniques I taught my quarterbacks were from Complete Quarterback. So again, visit CompleteQB.com today for more information. All right, Coach Kelly, like I said, thank you for taking the time. Appreciate it. Obviously, you guys coming off a great year last year. Program has got a lot of attention now, a lot of notoriety. Obviously, we were talking before we went live. Buying is important. It takes time for that. Let's start there. How would you assess of where the program is right now since you took over?
Oh, I think it's in such a great spot. I mean, we are so lucky and fortunate, just like we talked about, that to have great kids. I mean, the kids are the ones that have to buy in. Uh, you know, we were 11-1 this year, and obviously losing to Randolph was a killer for them for being that far and being that close. And I mean, they couldn't wait to get back into the weight room. I mean, we waited about a month, and they were dying to get in there. I had to hold them back just to give them a little bit of time to rest. But like you said, in that buy-in, they're ready every day. They're getting in there. We're talking 40-some kids in there every day, working hard, committed, and that's been probably our biggest thing. Is when I got there, we really dedicated time to setting up an off-season program and kind of holding them accountable in the off-season. And I think that's where you've really seen the buy-in. And now my seniors are going to be my first group of freshmen to come through. So I think we're kind of seeing the fruit of our tuition a little bit and that hard work. So we're definitely seeing that work. And like you said, the buy-in come into play now.
Obviously, it's a different dynamic when you're coaching at a Voc Tech school.
Yep.
There's so many. I mean, it's not just student athlete, because not only are they students, but they're also focusing on their trade, trying to getting that experience. In most cases, they're 1 week on, 1 week off when it comes to classes in their trade. Um, how challenging is it coaching at a Voc Tech school? Is it challenging at all? I coached at Blue Hills when I started my coaching career, and I loved it. I found it to be, I found the kids to be hardworking, committed, mature. Because let's face it, their high school experience is a lot different than the traditional high school experience.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm actually a high school vocational teacher as well. I teach a construction craft laborers program. So when I got there and interviewed for the job, I know we'll get into that more, but it just kind of made sense, and I really understood the core value of work in football. So the first thing that we sat down was with the seniors of how can we make the practice schedule work around your co-op schedule? Because in the past, sometimes they practice right after school. Some of the kids couldn't do that. So we practice at 4:15, which is a little bit later for the kids that aren't on co-op. But like with some of the bigger senior classes now, that helps them still be able to work and then come to practice comfortably, not asking their boss to leave at 1 o'clock. And I get it and I understand. But I mean, we see it. I mean, these kids are carpenters getting up at 5 in the morning, plumbers 5 in the morning, working all day, and then driving back to school and then going to practice for 2 hours and giving a great effort. I mean, it is unbelievable. I am so lucky that obviously in our league I have great mentors: Al Costabile, Kevin Bradley, Don Harris, all these guys at all these other big tech schools. I can always bounce opinions off of them. How do you guys, work with some of the co-op kids and everything? But I mean, like you said, you just have a different level of toughness. I mean, these kids are doing it at a level that most kids aren't. They're getting up early in the morning, working, then coming to practice and giving you everything they got.
Yeah, and I think that gets lost on people, Coach, that these kids are working too, especially
Yeah.
the upperclassmen. It's not just going to school. By the time you get to junior year now, you're doing your co-op, you're out in the field. It's a much different dynamic than just going to school all day, and then going to practice. I mean, the days that they're working, the weeks that they're working, I mean, they're out there grinding, busting their humps, and then they got to go to football practice, which is so uniquely different than any other high school experience in that regard.
Oh, you're so right. I mean, we always try to look at our schedule too, like when we first get our schedule and see what weeks they're on co-op, because I know some seniors just they get affected by it. Sometimes it works out better, sometimes it doesn't. Like sometimes, with our film study, it's a little bit harder to get them in early when we want to do film on a Monday because again, they're at work, so it all depends on that week. Really, of who we're playing. So we do have to play that into consideration. But like I said, we haven't had an issue with it. All the companies that we worked with are good. Again, I think it really made sense that like I teach vocational high school, so I understand it, and I understand that whole kind of system. So I've made a huge difference, and it's just something that we can relate about a lot. And we do it with the people, we do it in everything that we value. Like if you're gonna miss a day of practice, which obviously we try not to, but if they are, we talk about communication, how you can't no call, no show on a job, and we relate everything to on the job site. I mean, I did it for a long time. I was in the field as well. So I understand kind of how that goes. So it's good to have that relation. I think they understand that.
Let's talk about your coaching career. How did you get into coaching? Obviously, you played the game. How did you end up getting into coaching, and how did you end up the head football coach at Nashoba Tech?
Yeah, so I started out coaching seventh and eighth grade football in Medford when I was 17. The year I graduated, I joined the laborers union and I had free time in the summer. I did that and I thought I knew everything. I ran about 17 different offensive formations and we didn't win a game for the first 2 years at all. I couldn't figure out what is going on. I mean, I didn't know
You were running
anything.
too much.
I was 18 years old trying to figure something out and couldn't figure out anything. I was so lucky to grow up in that organization. I did it for 5 years. Coached in that seventh and eighth grade, saw that thing turn around. We ended up winning a league title, going to a Super Bowl, going undefeated. I then got picked up by St. Clement's High School. Colin Walsh was the first coach. He's coaching at Merrimack right now. Those guys were unbelievable. Gave me my first opportunity to help coach on varsity. I was on the headset. I was so excited just to be on a headset for a football game. They all went to Pope John the next year. I then ended up getting lucky, and some Mystic Valley took a chance on me at 23 years old to be the head coach, and I really just cut my teeth at that time. I was really young, but we had great people and we worked really hard. And our first year we went 2-9. The next year we went 5-6. COVID year came up. They canceled the program, which honestly was the biggest blessing in disguise. I got picked up by Malden Catholic, Bill Raycraft, Sean Terrill, Jeff Smith. I was with like 5 different former head coaches on that staff. And I sat down with Mr. Raycraft, Mr. Smith, and I was an offensive guy. And they said, Coach, if you want to be another head coach again, we're switching you to defense. And I went over to defense and I learned defense. And I was on the headsets calling coverages against St. John's Prep and Zavarian and Catholic Memorial. And that level of preparation for those 3 years at Malden Catholic were unbelievable. The Nashoba Tech opened. Again, I was already in the league at Mystic Valley, so I had a lot of good connections. Kevin Bradley being really a big one for me. Put out a really good word for me when I applied. It just made sense. It was the right timing. And again, I thought that time at Mystic Valley, cutting my teeth as a head coach early and young, I thought I was ready for this, and we did really well. We were 9-4 my first year, and we've done really well since. Luckily, I have the best assistant coaches around. I have a huge staff, really, really a lot of good guys. But I've coached with really, really good people, and I am not afraid to reach out to anybody. Even in the Shriners game, I coached with Brian Aylwood, Pat Lamusta, Jeff Hutton. I talk to those guys weekly when I play somebody. I'm like, "What do you think about this?" I'm not afraid to reach out for help.
Yeah, and that's so important, right? Especially in this day and age, and you learned that the hard way in a
Yep.
sense as a young
Yep.
head coach. You learned that you had to lean on other people, specifically people with experience. And
Hmm.
that says a lot because you don't always see that with young coaches. Like you said, when you started coaching at 17, you were running 17 different formations, probably 5 different offenses.
Yep.
And while you were cutting your teeth that way, as you said, you thought you knew it all. And then you realize, oh man, this is harder than I thought. But then you get around experienced guys that can show you the ropes. That's so important as a young coach. I remember the same thing, coaching with guys that had been around 20, 30 years. And they really truly teach you how to be a coach, even if they're not focused on that and that's not their intention. Just being around them, watching them work. I remember when I coached at Franklin High School, and at that point I wasn't even really a young coach. I had been around for a while, But in the early 2000s, I coached with Brad Sidwell at Franklin High School. I was his offensive and defensive line coach. And I remember watching his dad. He was our defensive coordinator. And his dad, of course, was the late Steve Sidwell, who had been the defensive coordinator for the Saints and the Patriots and the Seahawks.
Wow.
And just watching him work, watching him script practice, watching him script team. And I ended up taking that script and I carried it with me the rest of my career from that point on. And I specifically used a pencil. But my point in bringing this up is you just watch him work. You watch how meticulous and how detailed he was. And then you say to yourself, well, that's why I coached in the NFL all those years, because he understood the value of hard work. And just simply watching him, he passed that along to me. And so and the other coaches. And I feel like guys like yourself, same boat, watching these guys coach. You mentioned guys like Coach Constabile and Coach Harris, watching these guys, coach their programs, you can't help but say, hey, you know what? I like the way they're doing this or doing that. I think I'm going to do that as well.
Absolutely. And I recognize when someone does something really well. I mean, when we installed the double wing 2 years ago, I called Bob Almeida and we sat with him for 4 hours. I will sit with anybody and talk. Like I said, in terms of learning principles, when we played wing T teams, I sit with Brian Aylwood and call him and he'll give me everything he's got on what we can do. I'm really lucky right now. Our athletic director is Matt Dawson. If you people don't know Matt, was former defensive coordinator at Fordham and played at UMass and captain and all that stuff. So I can sit with Matt and talk. We talk hours of football. So I use every resource I can. We talked about it on the live. I said, hey, I got to get to King Philip and see what's going on there to learn some of that mug defense. I need to learn some stuff here, So
Yeah.
I love that stuff. I wish you could do it more, like I wish we had a spring practice type where we could go visit different programs. Because, sometimes it's hard once you get going, of course. But, we really try. I try to. I'm only 30 years old. There's so much more I can learn throughout the way.
Yeah, geez. I used to think back when I was 30, I'm 50. I used to think back when I was 30, people would say, oh, you're a baby. Now I can say that to people. You're a baby.
Yep.
So
Yep.
there you go. And someday you'll say that to someone else.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously we're living in a time now where we talked about the type of kid you have at Nashoba Tech, but we're living in a time now, Danny, where kids are being pulled in a lot of different directions, whether they're going to a public school, Catholic school, private school, Voc Tech, doesn't really matter. There are a lot of challenges for young people nowadays. We're living in a time where social media is prevalent, technology. I mean, obviously, I'm almost twice your age. We didn't have the internet when I was in high school. And in many ways, I feel like we had it so much better because we didn't have these distractions. We didn't have these pitfalls that you have now. And these young people are dealing with these pitfalls. But I ask coaches the same question every year because I truly want to see what people think. But some people will tell you kids have changed. Do you think kids have changed, or do you think kids are the same as they've always been?
See, I think it goes just different with a kid, and I can really see. I mean, I feel like when we get kids that have played youth all the way through, you still kind of see that core value of the hard work, and they've been put in together by probably somebody that's played the game for a long time. But when you see kids that are kind of just joining in new, I definitely see this kind of a difference to it. I mean, like you said, social media is so big, and I mean, we see it all the time. Not as much, luckily for us, but it's so easy for the kid to find the next big thing, right? So
Yep.
us being a Division 8 school, if a kid really wants to make a big jump, yes, they could go find the prep. They could go find an ISL school so much quicker than they could back in the day. A coach is watching their film, something like that, So we try to do a good job of, really opening options for our kids and using social media positively and Twitter and everything. And I think that we do a pretty good job on our social media between Instagram and Twitter. And it's a lot, you try to manage that for the kids as well. And we try to tell them deadlines and things that you should hit. But in terms of where they are, I can definitely see what you're saying. And in terms of like that old school toughness, it's definitely changed. You definitely have to approach them differently, I would say. I would
I
say
couldn't
where
agree
I
with you
was,
more. And I'm so glad
yeah,
you said that because if I were to put a percentage on it, I feel like 80% of the coaches that I have interviewed on this show the last 4 years would tell me that no, kids haven't changed. They're still the same. I think they have changed.
a little bit. I
I
feel,
think they've changed. And I think what's changed, it's not you can make the argument that it's not necessarily the kids per se that have changed, but their environment has changed. Parenting is different.
absolutely.
And like we said, they just have so many more challenges and expectations placed on them, I feel, than previous generations.
100%. You're so right. And we talk about it all the time. I have an older, not an older coach, but he's on my staff and he's like our guy that we go back to. And he has to remind us sometimes, guys, this isn't the way it used to be and stuff like that. Like, I'm only 30, so I understand. I mean, our high school coaches came over from Everett and they were tough as hell. They were very tough on us. And that stuff doesn't really, that's not always the way you get the best out of the kids anymore. And you know that. I mean, that's not the way it is. So have kids change? No, but they probably have because of the way that you need to adapt to how you talk to them and speak to them and just the way day and age it is. And I just think that's where you have to adapt with the time. And but the hard work of football never goes away. And lazy knows nothing. You know, you see it, and you gotta make sure that they're not, falling off, and be still hold them accountable. So that I think that part of it, luckily, is still there. So we still hold that true.
Yeah, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and it's hard.
For sure.
I've been in this business both as a teacher, head football coach,
Yeah.
administrator now for 30 years, and it's hard. It's hard not to. I do think kids need that kick in the ass sometimes, though. I really
Absolutely.
do. I think they do,
Absolutely.
and I think that old school love, if you will, I think is a necessity. I really do think it's a necessity for some of these kids. I think they need that reality check, and you know, and look, you got to know your audience, right? Some kids can handle it, others can't. So it's going to be almost on an individual basis in terms of how you approach these kids and how you deal with them. You are watching the Coaches Chat presented by Complete Quarterback. I'm your host, John Serenitas. This is our first episode of the off season. We'll be with you every Thursday night, the rest of the off season into July. However, if we need to switch the show based on coaches' availability, we will go on another night. If we do that, we will let you know in advance. This week, I'm joined by Danny Kelly, head football coach at Nashoba Tech. Philosophically, and without getting into too much detail, you mentioned the double wing and meeting with Coach Almeida, who I think is the preeminent double wing coach in Massachusetts. Um, I'm assuming that's what you guys run, and I'm assuming that obviously, given the success you've had, you're pretty good at it. Again, without getting into too many details, why study the double wing? What appealed to you about that offense to run it at a Nashoba Tech?
So we actually used it as, if you kind of think about it more, it's an old Everett style offense. So we use the double wing in variation to when I need it. We also go 3-by-1, empty, H back,
So you
tight end
marry it with
wing.
the spread like Everett did,
Oh,
Holliston, yeah,
exactly. So if you
Franklin
watch
now,
Franklin,
Todd Kiley,
Franklin,
yeah,
yep,
yeah.
I've watched a lot of Franklin, Wakefield 3 years ago when they won the Super Bowl. They would use I use the double wing when I feel like it's going to be to an advantage on teams that don't see it at all. Now, when we play Whittier, we don't run our double wing at all because that's what they run. So they know it. They practice it. They practice the speed of it. That's not what we run. We go all spread against them. When if we replace Stoneham, which we're playing this year, we are not going to be in the double wing because they're going to understand it. When we play some of these other teams that don't see it at all, they come off a big week seeing a very fast team, and we slow it right down and we go right into it. And you know what I use it for? If it's not being stopped, I won't get out of it. So if you're going to give me 3, 4, 5 yards of carry, I'll stand it the whole game. If you're going to give me trouble, all right, I'll get out of it. I'll switch a formation, then I'll come back to it when I need to. We do a really, really good job of switching up our offense. My offensive coordinator, Marcus Cavallo, is really, really good at it, and he does a good job at controlling the pace of the game. So, yes, we did sit with Bob for 4 hours and really, really dug into the double wing. I wanted to understand it. I wanted to know what gave him fits. I wanted to know when I could use it, how I can use it, how I can pass out of it, who to attack, who to block, who to kick out, what happens if they're squeezing too hard. So that's really what we use it for in the terms of why I use the double wing is teams just don't see it. Now it is honestly in our division, the top teams do use it. West Boylston lives and dies by it.
Oh yeah,
Randolph,
yeah.
Randolph will use it huge. So in those games, like Randolph, when we played them in the Final Four, they stopped our first 2 drives in double wing. So we went aerial attack and we did just fine. And then we started moving the ball. We probably were 2 drives too late. But in those games where people know it, we'll get out of it and we'll go spread. So we're lucky to have still that luxury with using an H back. Still kind of those same values, but using that kind of pistol power run we use.
And defensively, what is your philosophy on
Yeah.
defense? What from a principal standpoint, what do you expect your guys to do?
Yeah, so we run a 4-2-5. We do sit in a 4-4 base. Sometimes it depends. This is what I'm presenting at Gillette. I'm doing split field coverages out of the 4-2-5. So I'm in just different alignments. So I really learned that to the core at Malden Catholic. We use what we call the field dog. Everybody uses a different word. Um, we used him really creatively, and we used him really creatively throughout this season when we played Drake it and Cathedral, teams that really want to throw the ball. I have no problem putting him out on an X receiver and just telling him to jam him, and he has no other responsibility but that. And that was a huge, huge testament to when I coached with Brian Aylward in the Shriners game. He uses an X, and everyone will see it, and they use him in creative ways. And he taught me how to use him, and and you know what? He could. People are scared to put him in places that he's not, and it's kind of like a box one defense on basketball, and the defense will play behind it. So we use some stuff like that. We're gonna talk about that at Gillette and everything as I go through that. But that's really where we sit in a base, and really we try to run split field coverages, disguise good coverages. I use a lot of read two to the boundary, and then I'll just roll coverages depending on if you motion to the field or the boundary. But coverages are where I really specialize in. That's my thing. And then my defensive coordinator, James McCormick, just does an excellent job of doing the fronts, and he's done an excellent job completing our defense. It was the best defense in school history. I was really impressed with him. He was the first year defensive coordinator. He did an excellent job.
Coach Bissau checks in. Thanks for checking in, Coach. Mike Ross has also used the double wing to much success at 3 different schools: Worcester
Yep.
North, Grafton, and West Boylston over the course of his career. Yeah, Mike is tremendous. I mean,
Unbelievable.
obviously he's coached West Boylston out of 3 straight Super Bowls, 1 in D7, 2 in D8. He's one of the best coaches in the state and has been for a long time. Thanks for checking in, Coach. Appreciate you following along and watching. Obviously, a couple of the programs you mentioned, you talked about you're going to be playing Stoneham this season. I think you got a lot of people's attention about a month ago when you put your schedule out, my friend, and it
Mm-hmm.
said Catholic Memorial.
Yep.
I have a lot of experience with Catholic Memorial. We've played them in 3 of the last 4 Division II Super Bowls. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to beat them. But they're, in my opinion, and I say this, and I'm sure I'll get pushback from some people in other parts of our region here, but I think they're the best team in New England. Why would you play them? Why would Division 8 Nashoba Tech play Catholic Memorial? How do you think that benefits your program?
So benefits our program in the terms of they are the golden standard of excellence. I mean, to be honest, we had an opening and we were talking as a staff, and in Division 8, it is really hard to find power ranking points. So let's play the system, right? Okay. This is the way the system is. And I don't set the system. I play the power rankings game.
Yeah.
And I did it last year and we were undefeated. And a coach of mine that I have on staff was like, if we play a weaker competition, it's not going to benefit us to get to the 1 seed. But I told him if we go undefeated and we win every game by 14, we will get there. Okay. Well, we don't want to see West Wilson, Randolph Cathedral in the Final Four. I want to be the 1 seed. How do I almost guarantee myself that opportunity? I'll play someone with a huge power ranking point like Catholic Memorial. I know Coach DiBiase very well. I played at Medford High. When he coached at Everett, and he's a very respectful guy. He knows how to play the game right. He also had 0 games. We reached out to them to see if they would be available. He called me personally and told me that would be an unbelievable thing for him because nobody else has picked up a game. Both non-league games were dropped. He let us pick it up. He asked us if we wanted to come to him. He understands the situation, and he knows that we're gonna give us our best fight. We're coming out there to play. We're gonna show our guys that, hey, we're gonna try to compete at a high level. But in terms of where we're trying to fall at the end of the season and how I view our team, I think that this could benefit us in the long run. In terms of seeing, number one, our kids seeing the exposure of that level of football, but also playing the power ranking point game in the end, it's going to hugely benefit us. It's going to put us in a really good spot, almost regardless of the record, to be in the top 4 seed, debatably the 1, depending on what we do.
Yeah, and obviously speaking about the rest of your schedule, you're also going to play Stoneham.
Yep.
When you're putting a schedule together, I think a lot goes into it, right? As a head football coach, you look at what you have coming back. You want to
Yep.
look and see what other people have coming back. But you also bring up a good point, Danny, in that in this day and age with the power rankings and the point system, you're put in a position where you can no longer go out there and play as we used to call them back in the day, the sisters of the poor. Now you have to go out and play a pretty competitive schedule. You're playing CM, you're playing Stoneham. How important was it for you to find that balance between, all right, I have this team coming back and playing a really good schedule?
Yeah, I mean, we understand the team. We talked to the team. We talked to the coaches. We all sat down and had a meeting about the schedule of where we want to be. I mean, We were undefeated last year. We're gonna do that every year and figure out who we're gonna play and this, that, and the other. I mean, we're trying to play the best of the best. We want our kids to be exposed to the best of the best. We play a lot of double wing teams in the finals. West Boylston, Randolph. If we can compete with someone like Stoneham, which again is going to be a tough, tall challenge for us, I understand that. But that's going to prepare us for Whittier Tech, who runs double wing, for West Boylston, for Randolph down the road. You're not going to see many teams better than that. So I strategically plan that who I know we're going to see down the road. If I thought we were going to see an unbelievable wing T team down the road, I'd play my friend at Bay Path and I would make sure that I play them early so
That'd
I
be a
can
hell
help
of a
prepare.
game. I mean, Bay
Exactly.
Path was
So
very good last year.
so between them and Catholic Memorial, they're going to get us ready. It's a tough time. We have a bye week right after Catholic Memorial, so it's a good timing. And again, it's we have to play the system. We have to understand how that power ranking system is going to shake out at the end. It's a huge part of it, but it's also the culture of the program. We need to understand that just because we're a small Division 8 school, it doesn't mean that we can't go out and compete with people as well. We're not afraid. We'll go out there and take on a challenge, but understanding, yes, this is probably the tallest task, and we do look like crazy people, but what's what we're gonna do? We're gonna take it on. We're gonna see what happens. So we're ready to
Yeah.
compete.
And again, I don't say this. I mean, do I think there
Yep.
are programs out there that can play with them and beat them? Sure.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
but
tough.
but but I do think that last year they were the best team in New England that I saw. I thought the private schools would probably be on par, the Choates and the Tabors and those
Yep.
schools. But I do think overall, I mean, if you look at the Catholic Conference, Zavarian went toe to toe with them. They ended up winning the D1 Super Bowl. But they were very impressive last year. But I do give you credit. I mean, again, we're now living in a time where you do need to play up. Gone are the days where you schedule within your own division or maybe weaker opponents in higher divisions. You
Yep.
gotta play good people. Speaking of next year's team, just some thoughts. We're at a point now where we're at the end of February, going into March. Last season is a distant memory. Just some thoughts on the upcoming season and what you have back, and who are some players that you think we need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously we lost Chase Carney, who's a Boston Herald, Boston Globe, Shriners game, going into college. He's one of the best players in Division 8 and one of the best players I've ever coached. He could do everything, so that's going to be a huge loss. We lost a great defensive tackle in KJ and our quarterback as well. So we lost some of our defensive backfield. So we're definitely going to be a little bit kind of newer in the defensive backfield, but our line is completely back. Our freshman running back, Zach DeShanes, is now a year older at sophomore. He finished with 30 touchdowns and 1,600 yards as a freshman. He's just he was just skating on ice at that point. He's ready now and he understands kind of the offense and who we are and high school football. He was really just kind of cutting his teeth. Miguel Montalvo's been great. He's gotten some Ivy League looks right now. So he's going to be a breakout player for us. And we're welcoming in a junior quarterback. He's a real different type of player. He's a runner. He's tough. He's going to play safety for us as well. He's got that tough mentality. I see us, we expect to fully be right back in the mix. I think last year's, like you said, it's a distant memory, but it was the first team to get there and show them that, wow, we can get there. This work paid off. Everything that we're doing pays off at the end. And I think you guys understand that, you've been around high quality programs and great teams. And when you get there, people fall in line. They understand what it
Yep.
takes to get there. And that's the standard. I said anything less than that is a disappointment. How do you want to leave your legacy? What's your legacy going to be? There's only one way to go, and it's to the Super Bowl. And we're craving to get there. People bought in, the stands were packed. We have a great, entrance with the bagpipes and everything like that. We try to make it a great experience. So, these guys are ready and they're excited. And the coaching staff, I'm lucky again to have the best assistant coaches. They work really hard year round.
What's on tap here for the rest of the offseason? I know you mentioned you're going to be at the Massachusetts High School Football Coaches Association Clinic at Gillette here in a couple of weeks. What else is on tap this offseason as you gear up for 2025?
Yeah, we'll be at that. We're going to try to make it down to Big New England as well. We do our local 7-on-7 tournaments. We're going to be doing the Merrimack tournament. We do the Endicott tournament. We're going to do the BC tournament. We try to just get them exposed to a couple different things. University of New England runs kind of like a little showcase we're trying to get into with Barnstable. Like I said, I try to connect with coaches. Now that we've talked again, I'm coming down to Rentham and I'm going to be bringing my notepad. I'll sit in front of that film for 5 hours. So I just try to get out personally as much as I can and meet with guys. And I'm a pain in the butt to probably a bunch of guys, but I try to sit down with as many people and really see what they're doing and how they're adjusting. And then the kids, we just try to keep them busy as when they're in their off season, and make sure they're lifting and getting out there and running in the summertime. And like I said, they're bought in. It's easy for me. I just have to show up. It's easy now. That was the biggest thing. It's a testament to the kids. They're great hard workers, and again, the coaches, they show up. So it helps me. It makes my job real easy, you know?
Well, when you see Coach Lee at the clinic, make sure you set up a time with him, because if
Absolutely.
you don't, he might as well be DB Cooper. He's hard to find. So
Oh, I know.
you,
Yep,
you
absolutely.
better set that time up. And like I said to you before we went live, he enjoys the opportunity to talk to other coaches and meet with them and talk about what we've done there through the years to turn the program into a competitive program. But as I also said to you, and you know this, you've said the same thing. I mean, there's no secret sauce here. If there is, it's the kids. Your secret
Hmm.
sauce is the kids. You got to have
Absolutely.
talent, but above all else, you got to have hard work and commitment. And if you have those things, then the talent falls in line and you can compete. Danny Kelly, I want to say thank you for taking the time, Coach. Greatly appreciate it. Looking forward to catching up with you on the clinic circuit. And if there's ever anything we can do, man, feel free to reach out any way we can help. That's what we're here for.
I really appreciate it. Like I said, I mean, I listen in weekly. I have a long drive to work every day, and on Thursdays, I loved recapping the games with you and Tyler. I used to listen to those every week. I'm like, they better be talking about the Nashoba Tech in this week game, and we always had to wait till last. But it was great. You guys do an excellent job, obviously, throughout everything. But high school football, you guys are top of the line, and we've been talking a lot about getting on it. So I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm humbled to be on here, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about the program.
Well, thank you for taking the time. We really appreciate you doing that for us. And like I said, that's what we're here for. We want to promote the programs in our area and help the coaches and the kids as much as we can, because we have an obligation to the game. And the reason I started New England Football Journal in 2019 was I wanted to ensure that we were going to leave the game better than we found it and give the game a chance to thrive. So we're hoping we're
Absolutely.
doing our part. It's more than just a business to us. It's a personal passion, and we enjoy what we do. But like I said, great to see you, my friend, and we'll catch up this off season.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. We'll see you at Gillette.
Thanks, brother. Same here. That is Danny Kelly, head football coach at Nashoba Tech. That'll do it for this week's episode of the Coaches Chat. For Coach Kelly, I'm John Cernitas. Till next time, peace.